It's January, it's a new year, and that means that a lot of people are going to be picking up guitar for the first time and playing, which is great. And while there's a lot of really good beginner advice and resources out there are a few bad pieces of advice that I see repeated quite a bit that might hold you back in your guitar journey or might just stop someone from picking up a guitar in the first place, which is really sad. So I just wanted to make this video to help correct that and just make your guitar playing maybe a little bit easier. So the first piece of advice that I wanted to tackle is the one that I hate the absolute most. I really don't hate many things in life. This piece of advice is one of them. And that is, if you want to learn guitar, you have to learn on an acoustic guitar first. That is complete rubbish. It's just not true at all. From what I can work out, I think it comes from two places. The first is that acoustic guitar is seen as more accessible for beginners because you only have to buy the guitar, you don't have to buy a guitar, an amp, a cable, and that kind of thing. And the second is that people think that acoustic guitar is harder, so if you can play acoustic, you can play electric. If you can dodge a wrench, you can dodge a ball, that kind of thing. And that's just completely irrelevant, if ever it was relevant. Because first of all, there's plenty of affordable entry-level guitars out there, electric guitars that you can get. And second of all, I see electric and acoustic as completely different instruments. So learning one will help you understand the layout of the other one, because they have the same layout of frets and strings and that kind of thing. But they require two very different approaches in playing, I think. Especially if you want to niche down into a genre like metal or hard rock or something like that. You're not going to be able to get those tones from an acoustic guitar. And likewise, if you want that bright, deep sound of an acoustic, you might find the electric a little bit lacking. So if you want to learn electric guitar, please learn on electric. If you want to learn on acoustic, learn on an acoustic. Hopefully that's the last time I ever have to say that in my life, but I know it's not. Next, we've got one that I don't see a lot of people saying, but a lot of people seem to inherently believe. And that is that learning theory ruins creativity. And it doesn't. In fact, learning theory really helps with your creativity. This is something that I really believed when I was younger because a lot of my guitar heroes didn't have formal music training. So I thought, these people don't understand theory. I don't need to learn it. And actually, it is really helpful. A good way to think of theory is as a musical language. And playing guitar can be something like ordering food in a restaurant. If you don't know the language, you're going to have a bit of a harder time ordering exactly what you want. You might be able to get a few phrases out, you'll end up with something, but it might not be tailored to your exact taste. Whereas knowing the language and knowing theory, you're going to be able to get something that's exactly what you're looking for. And with your guitar playing, you're going to be able to be more expressive and get the sounds out that you want to put out there. So as someone that's been playing for about 20 or so years, really focusing on theory will help you playing and will help you be more creative, I guarantee that. Now, this next one's a bit more of a misconception as opposed to bad advice, but it can really affect those early stages of playing and motivation. And that's if you're getting started with guitar, you have to buy a beginner cheap electric guitar. While it might make sense to spend a little bit less money when buying gear because you're not sure if you're going to keep up guitar and you don't want to make that big investment, specifically targeting cheap, poorly made gear can actually really hold back your playing. For example, guitars that are poorly made will have issues with playability, intonation, fret buzz, things like that. You'll end up playing around the problems and developing bad technique and a bad ear as well when it comes to things like intonation and tuning. Now, I want to be really clear here. I'm not saying that you have to spend a lot of money to get started with guitar at all, because you don't. If all you can afford right now is one of those beginner kits with the cheaper guitar and that tiny amp, then absolutely go for it. Anything to get a guitar in your hands and get practicing and playing. Plenty of people have done that. That's exactly how I started. I started with a Fender Squier Strat style and that tiny amp that doesn't sound too great, but was enough at the time. But what I am saying is if you have got a bit of a bigger budget, a bit more expendable income, I'd really recommend spending towards the higher end of that budget as opposed to specifically seeking out beginner-oriented gear, because you'll end up with a better quality instrument overall, better playability, better sound. Likewise with an amplifier, something that's better quality and will sound better as well. And another benefit is that if you find the guitar isn't for you, then better quality gear usually has a better resale value as well, so you'll be able to get more of your money back. Again, if you are on a tighter budget, I really recommend sticking to the known guitar brands that play in that sort of beginner space, like Fender Squier, for example, some of the entry-level Epiphone models, and the Yamaha Pacifica series, just to name a few. Basically anything that you can find in a guitar shop. They'll usually be better quality. Another great tip is if you've got a more affordable instrument, learn how to set it up or get it set up by a professional. It costs about $70 or so, worth every penny. Cheaper if you do it yourself obviously, but you just have to buy the gear. I've got a video in the description that shows you exactly how to do it step by step. It's really worth it. You'll get more out of your guitar. Finally, on this one, something that I really recommend is don't be afraid to shop secondhand, because you can get some really great deals out there. And guitar gear doesn't tend to really depreciate that much in terms of quality. So you can get something pretty good quality for a fraction of the price. I buy most of my gear secondhand just for that reason. Next up is one that I've had plenty of people actually say to me on this channel, and it makes me really sad because it will stop someone from picking up a guitar and playing in the first place. And that's, I want to play guitar, but my hands are too small. I promise they're not. Guitars come in a lot of different shapes and sizes and have a lot of different factors that affect how it feels in your hand, like the neck profile, the scale length, the fretboard radius, and I'll say the string gauge as well, which is something that you can change. A guitar with a really chunky baseball bat-like neck isn't going to be the best thing for someone with small hands, because you're not going to be able to get your hands around it properly. So you want something with a thinner neck profile. Likewise, you'll probably want a guitar with a larger fretboard radius, meaning that the fretboard is flatter, because you'll find it a little bit easier to play rather than having to curve your hand round. Scale length is another thing, which is the distance between the nut and the bridge, and a shorter scale length will mean that the frets are slightly closer together, so they'll be a lot easier to fret. You're not going to have to move around or stretch as much. Finally, the string gauge, which is how thick the strings are, will play quite a big role as well. If you use a thinner string gauge, there'll be less pressure on your hand, less pushback when it comes to bending stuff. So it'll be a lot easier for you to use. Now, most people will be able to play a full scale guitar no problem. They'll just have to find something with a thinner neck or a flatter fretboard radius, that kind of thing. But if your hands are particularly small, you might want to look into what's called a 3/4 size guitar or a 3/4 scale guitar. And what that is, it's just a guitar but made a little bit smaller. So an even shorter scale length, meaning that there's less string tension, so it's not going to hurt your hands as much. The neck will be smaller, the frets will be slightly closer together. It'll just be a lot more accommodating on your hands if they are small. So no matter how small your hands are, I promise that there is a guitar out there that will work for you. Now, this last piece of advice is very interesting because it's good advice that actually gets morphed along the way and turns into very bad advice. And that's play fast and your hands will catch up. And there's a little bit of truth to this, but it's often implemented wrong and can actually lead to developing bad playing technique. If you want to learn to play something fast and you just straight out the gate try and play it as fast as you can, two things are going to happen. One, it's going to sound bad, and that's really going to put you off playing and kind of make you feel quite bad about yourself. At least it does for me. Two is you're going to probably develop bad technique. You're going to fudge it until you get the sound about 90% of the way there, and then you're going to say, that's good enough, I can kind of play it. That's bad. Instead, what I recommend is really taking a step back, learning and practicing a song slowly to build that muscle memory, build that technique, get your hands coordinated together, make sure that you're playing everything as it's meant to be played. Now, this is where the good bit of the advice comes in, because eventually you're going to want to speed up. But as you increase the BPM, as you speed it up, you're not going to go from playing slowly to playing medium to playing fast, because that's just not going to happen. It's kind of the way I've heard it explained to me, which is really helpful, is it's kind of like walking faster to run. You don't do that, you just run. So once you've got the technique down, once you know what you're playing, try playing it as fast as you can. Try really going for it full speed. And what I found with this is when I usually try and play something full speed, I'll mess it up and I'll see, my fingers are getting confused here, I'm not quite in sync with my strumming hand here, and I can go back and I can work on building up that technique. The real key to all of this is just really developing that strong foundation of good playing technique. If you can get your good playing technique down, the speed will come after. If you go for speed, you're gonna just develop a really bad playing technique overall. So as I said, these are the more common bits of bad advice that I've heard over the years, and hopefully this video will go a little bit of a way to help correct that for future players. But I'm also curious to hear from any other experienced guitarists in the comments down below, any bad advice that you've been told over the years, and hopefully we can squash some of these myths together. Otherwise, keep playing guitar, keep enjoying it, keep practicing, keep learning, and I'll see you in the next one.